Hey guys, hello everyone. Good morning to all. Hi SBJ, hi Random Facts. Good morning, guys. When will the session start? The session has started and we are live. And I hope you all can see me and hear me clearly. Can you guys give me a heads up in the chat, please? Am I audible and visible to you all? Oh, that's great, imperfect. We are excited to start with this GraphQL bootcamp. So I will take just 10 minutes of yours to explain you all the attendance procedure. Then we have a trainer, that is Ashpak sir. So he will be conducting this bootcamp, and he will be guiding you if you have any concern, like if you have any queries, any doubts, or anything you want suggestions, you can just ask him freely. The sir or the moderator will answer you in the chat. Okay, so do not worry about it. Audible? Okay. Okay, guys. So my name is Anam Khan. From LetsUpgrade, and I'm here to welcome you all for the day one of GraphQL bootcamp. It will be a 3-day bootcamp, and each day the timing will be from 10:30 to 12 p.m. Okay, so I hope and I believe that you people will join us again for the day 2 and day 3 session. It will be a blast. You will really enjoy the session. You will really enjoy the topics that the way trainer will teach you. So I hope you all will be there with us for the next 3 days. And please make sure that you join on time, that is at 10:30 a.m. So you will be in the loop and you won't miss anything. Okay, so I will share my screen shortly. Like now I will present my screen to explain you the attendance procedure. So you can mark it along with me either, or you can mark it anytime after the session. Also, you can mark it anytime. Like during this 3 days of bootcamp, you can mark your attendance anytime. So do not worry. Do not take any do not think that after the session you don't be able to mark your attendance. So yeah, I have shared the link in the chat. You can click that as well, or else you can see here in the description box for registration, attendance, LU coin certificate. For everything, we have this one link. We call it as a one link as everything is placed at one place. So first of all, you have to enroll for the program. If you're a new user, you're a new student at Let's Upgrade, you need to enroll for the bootcamp by putting that OTP and everything. So when you do it and scroll down the page, here below the day one title, you can see mark attendance toggle. Click on it. A rating scale will open from 1 to 10. You can rate the session according to your experience, your feedback, how much rating you would like to give. So here it is, and then I will give 10 on 10 for now. Here is a feedback box. If you have any suggestion for us, be it positive, negative, or if you have any improvement, like you want any improvement from us, please feel free to put it here. We will surely work on it. So then you can click on this mark attendance. So here your attendance has been marked, and here when you come up again, you can see this progress bar. It will increase day by day as you mark your attendance. For now, it is 33%, and by day 3, it will be 100%. So, one more thing, guys, like below this progress bar itself, you will be able to download your certificate by day 3 when the session will get end. That is after 12 p.m. You will be getting to see a generate certification option here below this progress bar. And before downloading it, you will have to pass a test. The test will contain 10 questions, and out of which you have to pass at least minimum 7 questions. It should be right, and then only you will be able to generate your certificate. So make sure that you be focused, be you learn everything from this boot camp. If you have any queries, any doubt you have, you can ask us in the chat related to any topic, and yeah, then only you will be able to pass this test. Okay, so I hope I'm clear, and it's like everyone understood about how to mark the attendance. हिंदी हिंदी रॉयल बाबा, मैंने जस्ट अभी अटेंडेंस मार्क करना बताया है, तो लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में है. जब आप वो लिंक ओपन करोगे, एक न्यू पेज ओपन होगा, एंड जैसे मैंने अभी बताया वैसे आपको स्टेप्स फॉलो करने हैं अटेंडेंस मार्क करने के लिए. एंड जब आपका अटेंडेंस मार्क हो जाएगा, आप ऊपर आएंगे तो आपको एक प्रोग्रेस बार बढ़ता हुआ दिखेगा. तो डे 3 तक जब सेशन खत्म हो जाएगा, इस प्रोग्रेस बार के नीचे ही आपको सर्टिफिकेट डाउनलोड का ऑप्शन मिलेगा. उसके पहले आपको एक टेस्ट पास करना होगा जिसमें 10 क्वेश्चंस होंगे, उसमें से 7 मिनिमम आपको राइट क्वेश्चंस देना होगा, फिर ही आप ये सर्टिफिकेट डाउनलोड कर पाओगे. एंड देयर इज नो कॉस्ट. लाइक यू आपको कोई फीस नहीं पे करना होगा, कुछ भी चीज नहीं है, इट्स अ फ्री सर्टिफिकेट, जस्ट यू नीड टू पास द टेस्ट. सो आई थिंक, आई होप रैंडम फैक्ट्स यू गॉट इट क्लियर. ओके, अगर आपको अभी भी प्रॉब्लम है या नहीं समझा तो आप वीडियो रिवाइंड कर लीजिए, फिर से देख लीजिए. हंसने की बात थी. ओके, ठीक है. आई होप आई एम क्लियर गाइज. एंड दिस session won't be in total English, like we won't this majorly we will follow the English language. So please, you also try to cope up with the language if you have any problem with it. So yeah, okay, we'll move forward. We have this all-in-one documentation also. When you click on this link, a document will open where you will find all the links, the registrations, doc link, attendance link, session links, and also down you have this notes page. So where you can find all the like notes, topics which we are going to teach you for the next 3 days. You can refer it. You can also refer, like keep it handy and use it anytime in your future also for your reference. We will upload the resources ppt as well here. If sir shares any of the resources with you guys, we will upload all those things here only. So do not worry about the resources, ppt files and everything. Just wait for some minute. After the session, we will upload all the thing here. Okay, so make sure that you keep it handy only. And we have this again, we have this student ambassador program, that is a which is a free 1 month program, and again you don't have to pay anything for it to apply for the ambassador program. The next batch will start from 1st of August. You have still 15 days, 16 days, you can apply for it. And these are the prizes that we give away there, of course depending upon your target that you achieve. So these are the milestone. And if you want to know more about it, just scroll down the page to know more. And if you are interested, please make sure that you apply through this apply now button. You will find your apply now in your page. Okay, so I hope I'm clear to everyone. Now we can start with the session. I will call the trainer, that is Ashfaq sir. So if you guys have any queries, any you want to know about this bootcamp, you can ask him freely. Okay, so hi sir, good morning.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes sir, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, so we can start with the session, sir. I will take a lead. You can start by giving your introduction to them, and yeah, we are there in the
Okay,
back if you need anything. So
cool.
bye, guys. Thank you for
Thank,
your time.
thank you so much. Do we have the slides on right now? Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Ashfaq, and as you can see, I'm going to take this course on GraphQL. A couple of things about myself. I am a principal software engineer at Intuit in San Diego. And as the email, you can contact me. That's my personal email. My open source projects, one of them is GraphQL, which is more related to GraphQL, and one of the other one is a domain specific language for service orchestration. A little bit about myself. I've been born and brought up in Mumbai. I went to Mumbai University, and then I started I came to US for my masters, did my masters, and I've been in US for about 12 years now, and 10 of those working at Intuit as a software engineer. Apart from that, I've also a public speaker and presented in multiple conferences. As you can see, one of the conferences, the GraphQL conference itself, which was organized by the GraphQL foundations who actually created the GraphQL spec, and some other conferences related to open source. So let us begin with the course GraphQL. So what you will get out of this exercise, you will understand the core GraphQL concepts. Uh, Basically, what is GraphQL? How is it different than REST, particularly because I'm sure you might have had some amount of experience about REST itself. You will learn how to build a GraphQL API yourself, meaning how to build your GraphQL server and how to integrate it with the client. From the client side, you will understand best practices for querying data. What are some of the optimization techniques that we can follow for querying as well as fetching data. And there are some advanced GraphQL concepts which are being used in the industry today, like authorization directives and GraphQL federation. And I'll also share some tools that will help you understand more about GraphQL and explore more about what GraphQL technology is all about. So we'll do a lot of hands-on in this whole course. So I'll be sharing a lot of code and examples on how to do certain stuff. So it'll be more fun as we go. I also want to say that I will take breaks all throughout the course itself. So I will take 2 breaks between, at least 2 breaks between every day. So you can accumulate all your questions there, and I'll try to answer each one of them during these breaks. So just be patient with your question. I'll be answering. I'll be answering them during these breaks, and looking at all the comments. So a little bit detailed overview of the course itself. We'll start with the introduction of GraphQL, on what it is and what the specification is all about. We'll use REST as our baseline, because it is easy to understand it with REST example. We'll cover the core concepts and the spec, understand some tools, some querying techniques, and create our GraphQL server. As we progress towards the course, mostly towards day 2 and day 3, we'll create a GraphQL server of our own, and we'll optimize the server and the client-side queries. Then the most important concept, I think, that is very practical in today's world, and is the GraphQL federation. It's a concept that I usually like the most, because this is what the industry actually uses from a large company point of view. So very basic, what is GraphQL? It's a querying language for APIs. There is also a runtime component to it, meaning runtime meaning just the server. It's the querying language and the server. It's not related to database at all, but it is kind of the concepts come from SQL itself, similar to, like, you can query only what you need and what is required in your API, and what is required by a client. You can do all of that. There is a single endpoint, which is the beauty of it, and there are some drawbacks to it as well, but everything is queried by a single endpoint, which is /GraphQL. We'll learn more about it, what the single endpoint means, and how all things work together. But just to compare it with REST, you have like /products. If you think about a service, just giving a very dummy example, /products, /comments, any kind of resources that you are building from your server, it's represented as a separate endpoint in itself. GraphQL is not like that. GraphQL is always going to be a single endpoint model, which is /GraphQL. It does not dictate transport and data source on the server side, meaning when you are providing access to the data or any kind of information from the backend, it does not really dictate how to fetch that data. It is just defining the contract between the client and server. We'll know more about it once we look at some examples. And one most important aspect of GraphQL is it is self-documenting. I know you might have heard about REST being documented by the OpenAPI /Swagger spec. But if you understand the core concepts, and as we go with the examples, we'll know why GraphQL is self-documenting, because we cannot do a GraphQL schema, a GraphQL service, without actually writing good documentation and defining the structure of the GraphQL server. The core 3 concepts of GraphQL are query, mutation, and subscription. Query is read only. When you compare it with REST, it's like the get method in REST. Mutation is write. And then subscriptions are long-lived connections, which is like server socket, web sockets, where you can just kind of feed data to the client from any kind of event on the server side. So these are the core concepts of GraphQL, which are the three, which is divided into three operations: read, write, and subscriptions, which is query, mutation, and subscription. We'll learn more about these in details on with an example later. Okay. So just to share a very basic example of how does it compare with REST. If you think about a REST service, and if you think about creating a sports, creating an application for sports, you have players, teams, and matches. Uh, in a REST in the REST world, you have to fetch all resources using a different endpoint. The client knows where to fetch players from, which is the play/players endpoint, where to fetch the teams from the teams endpoint, and where to fetch the matches from matches endpoint. So the client needs to be aware of where to fetch the appropriate resource from. But in the GraphQL, it's slightly different. The client knows only one endpoint, and it tells that endpoint what they need. And that's a slightly different paradigm on which we operate. And these the way the client tells the server is through a contract between the client and server, and that's what the whole spec is all about in GraphQL. Uh, So why, before we dive into some code of how GraphQL actually works, I want to just touch upon something which is very latest, and I think which is something why you should learn GraphQL. I think uh, currently, at least, the companies that are listed on the top right, these are like pioneers in adopting GraphQL, and these are also contributing to the specification itself, where the specification is evolving as we speak. And there is also, I'm part of one of the composite schemas group. I was part of one of the composite schema group, which is kind of evolving the GraphQL spec and improving it day by day. As we see from industry trends, a lot of companies are starting to explore GraphQL, which is 45%, and there is 35% increase in adoption yearly. Year over year, we are seeing a lot of adoption uh, when where GraphQL is like the first choice for creating modern APIs. One additional thing that a lot of companies are exploring is the way GraphQL complements generative and agentic AI is very. It basically very fits right in the alley because of its self-documenting nature. The AI agent or any kind of generative AI can actually, there are two aspects to it. You can actually generate a GraphQL server or a GraphQL schema using generative AI, and you can also have an agent understand the schema that you have generated or any server is exposing through GraphQL by the nature of the spec itself. And we'll know. I'll touch upon it. How does it become possible in the GraphQL world as we look at an example. So. So I'm going to start with a very basic premise of what a GraphQL what a GraphQL system looks like. But this is a very basic setup. I want it to be very basic because I don't want to complicate the system. There is a client. Then client can be desktop, mobile, or any other device. And there is a movie service. Let's imagine that we are trying to build Netflix in this example, and there is a DB that stores all the information about movies, right? This is a very basic setup that we will use in our examples. And as we go and progress towards understand the basic concepts, I'll try to keep this concept as simple as what we are seeing on the screen. When in the REST world, when you want to get access to the movie DB, you query the service using a get method and asks for, hey, give me all the movies. And the REST server responds by querying the database and gives you all the movies. So in the example, you get all the information, all the attributes about the movies, which is the ID, title, director, and you get all the movies. Like there could be like thousand and millions of movies. You get all the movies. So the next iteration to that usually is like the client may not need all the movies. The other evolution of the REST API is basically query params, and this is slightly uh, I would say an evolution, not an evolution of the REST API, but this is slightly where GraphQL actually starts making uh, its place. Basically, you have a query param where you can ask for, hey, give me only one movie. And a query param is kind of like a filter where it tells the movie service, I only want to fetch movie with an ID one, or you could have query param like title, etc., etc. But if you see in the response, you still get all the attributes of the movie itself. What if your mobile only wants to show the title and only wants to show the rating and maybe the cover image, right? So the problem is that problem is called actually overfetching. The client is probably throw away a lot of information that is coming from the server and only need use one or two like one or two attributes. So traditionally there is, I'm not saying there is not a solution for that in REST. If you see this example, you can change your uh, API contract to be post method, and you can in your request tell the server, hey, I only need three attributes, which is title, rating, cover image, because I only want to show that as a list in my web page or my screen. Oh, and the server will look at those attributes and only respond with those three things. And this is basically the crux of GraphQL. The problem here is this does not actually uh, follow a standard specification, meaning I came up with a random payload which is attributes as my key, and the service needs to understand that random payload. So it's very tightly coupled, and it's a contract that is established between the server and the client. Plus, the more complicated your database and more complicated your service becomes, the data source becomes, the more complicated your body will become, and or conditions, and more complicated the nesting of attributes will become in this spec. So what Facebook did was they created a spec which is something like GraphQL query. If you take the same example, if just let me go one slide back again. If you take the same example, which is in REST, and if you translate that to GraphQL, this is what it looks like. A client in this example is sending a query to the backend and asking for title, rating, and cover image with a movie ID equal to 1. So if you think this is more like a function call to the backend rather than just sending that in the payload. And when you see the shape of the data, the shape is also follows the same specification or same structure as the query itself. So that is basically what the spec is all about. The spec is about, it is very declarative on what the client is expecting from the server and what the server will respond. The GraphQL's network communication itself, meaning the GraphQL uh, uh, data, the GraphQL query and the response itself is on a HTTP specification itself, which is the post method, and you have to send an application JSON. I'll talk more about what that JSON looks like. But if you see the top part of the query, that is not the query that is sent over the wire. But for simplicity, that's basically the core of GraphQL, that the client sends a query to the server, and the server responds with that shape of the data. Now, this query is not something that clients create out of the box. The query is actually matching something on the server side itself, and we'll learn more about how the server defines what it is exposing. So let me just, yes. So the other problem that you possibly see on REST is when there is a REST API, and when you want to ask for multiple things from the backend, which is, let's say, you want to ask for movie and you also want to ask for the movies that were released in the last week, right? If you take an Netflix example, they have a concept called as newly released or something like that, right? When you on your homepage you want to fetch different types of data sources, you either create a very custom endpoint on the REST, or you from the client side make multiple calls to the backend, meaning you will make first post call, fetch all the movies or for top 10 movies, and you will also fetch make another call and fetch the recent movies that were released, and then that's what you show to the client. But GraphQL actually provides a way where the client can ask for multiple things at once. Because it's a single endpoint model, it can actually ask for both the request in a single query, and the server reacts with that in the data section. If you see this example, I've not added attributes, but you can make a sense of what that query and the response looks like. Same thing, the client just keeps, and this is not limited to 2. It can ask for 100 different things in the same query, and the server will respond to it. That's the beauty of it. The number of calls that will go out from the client to the server in this case is only going to be 1. So next slide, I'll talk more about the spec itself. I was talking about how the GraphQL itself is a post call on the network with an application JSON content type and also accept type. I'm sure you know about those headers, the content type and accept type. Where the query I was sharing in the previous examples goes in the query field, which is the first field in our payload. It's a JSON payload. It goes in the query field. The operation is query, and when I say operation, we just talk about query, mutation, and subscription. Okay. In this case, we are asking for data, so it's the operation is query, and there is variable sections in the query. I will touch upon these variable sections in the query. This gives more flexibility on how you can ask for more, create more complex queries in GraphQL and optimize your query. I'll share these examples when we are looking at some of the Explorer and some of the examples that I've server example that we have created here. The response that the server will always respond with is going to be data and errors. The data, if you see in the previous example, will have a similar shape on what the query is. If you ask for movie, you will get movies back. If you ask for recent movies, you'll get a recent movies key back. And the error section is reserved for any kind of exception or error that happens in the system. It's usually an array of an error where you have what went wrong in the system. Typically, most of the GraphQL server responds with 200. It's not like REST server where you have 4xx where the error is client define where the error in the client, where 5xx is the error on the server side, etc. It's mostly 200, and the errors will be populated in the errors object, which is errors field. The other thing is you can also have partial data response from GraphQL itself, meaning you can have data for in this example. Let's say movies operation resulted in the data, and recent movies resulted in some exception in the system while evaluation. You can have movie part of the payload coming back from the server, and there will also be an errors part of the payload which will actually have, hey, the recent movies we were not able to evaluate, and this is the reason we were not able to evaluate. So the client can actually look at some of these responses and take appropriate action. Okay, so this is a very important slide. I am I have tried to cover what goes into the whole spec of GraphQL with a very simple example, with again the same premises that we have been discussing. The client, there is a movie service, and what does the client and the server do in a GraphQL world? So the first thing that GraphQL starts with is the schema itself. On the server side, the server actually, uh, like you define the controllers in the REST world, where hey, my API is /players, and my players is of type application JSON. It will take an application JSON. You define something called as schema in GraphQL, and that schema is what is everything from a server perspective, and that's basically the core of a GraphQL ecosystem. Let's just look at the schema. I'll dig more into the details of the schema itself, but let's just look at the example. Step one, the server defines the schema, which is type query. And if you want to define mutation, you can define type mutation. But in this example, I only have type query, which is defining an operation called as movie with an argument called id as string, and it will return movie. So the uh, type after the colon is a return type, and if you see below, line number 5 to 11 tell you about the shape of the movie itself. It has title, description, rating, cover image, and it has to define everything till the leaf node. So if you have a complex type, it will keep on growing, and it will have to define everything in the leaf node. So it's very uh, tight, like typed system on the server side. So that is step one. When the client wants to uh, fetch data from the backend, the client knows about the schema. There is a and that is a very important concept of the GraphQL, which we'll get into detail. But the client actually knows about what the server is publishing, and the client only can create the schema query or the request matching the schema that the server is providing. And the validation itself will happen on the client side. The request does not have to go over the network, and we'll see that is an example on how that happens. So the validation itself will happen on some certain build tools that the client can use, and to make sure that the client query is not messed up and the client query is correct. So for example, in this query, if the client instead of rating it is just have stars or something like that, right? That will not be a valid query, and that will be blocked on the client library itself. Once the schema and everything is validated on the client side, the client can definitely make the request using the application, the JSON that we send with the query operation and variables, and then send the request over the network to the server side. Now, when we have that, the server will respond with the same shape of the data or the same structure of the data that the query and the schema were written with. So the whole system is very predictable, and the whole system is very well defined in the world of GraphQL. The server side schema is written in a schema definition language, which is the specification itself. The schema, the client side queries are written in a something called as what we call as GraphQL query. That is also part of the published as a part of the GraphQL spec. If you see the extension, there is small difference in the query and the schema itself. Schema has a GraphQLs extension that S stands for schema or SDL, and the query does not have that extension. You can actually download GraphQL plugins and extensions on ID of your choice, and actually see that it will understand the GraphQL specification itself. Then I spoke about the data. The data will follow the same shape as the client and the server. Before we dive into the actual working demo or some examples, let's see if you have some questions on the chat. I can go over some of the questions over the chat. Uh, yeah, we can do it in on live going from the bottom. So yeah, we can do it from VS Code or any IDE. And there are a lot of tools I will share after this. Right now, I'll share a lot of tools. Postman supports it. Any kind of network like Postman. I think you probably use Postman. I'm not sure if you heard about Insomnia. Insomnia is another tool that used to make network requests. There are a lot of tools and startups that have popped up just around the ecosystem of GraphQL, which have built up a lot of tooling on the GraphQL spec itself. These have built out GraphQL editors. These have built out GraphQL enhancement, client libraries, etc., etc. Netflix is one of the biggest contributor to the GraphQL spec. They've come up with Netflix DGS, which is the domain graph service, helps you to create a GraphQL service, and they have extensions as well. Apollo, if you think about, if you talk about GraphQL and if you don't talk about Apollo, Apollo is like some $1 billion company on just using GraphQL as their bread and butter. And they've come up with enterprise version of GraphQL where they're actually selling GraphQL solutions to big companies. Intuit is one of the consumers of Apollo tools and libraries. Um, is it something like Link? I'm not sure about what Link is, but let me just Google. I think I have seen Link. Okay, so I'm looking at Link. It could be classified as Link, but I think this is more between a client and a server. This is a contract between a client and the server over the wire than libraries. I think Link is more between libraries, right? And it's more of a design pattern than a framework. This GraphQL is a framework between client and the server, mostly used to in the API ecosystem rather than like libraries. There is nothing stopping uh, us from using GraphQL in the library itself, as a library itself instead of client and server, because like I said, the spec does not really dictate where it should be used and how it should be used. So imagine the server as a library and client can just keep making queries against those libraries using GraphQL specification, and then that is basically how it will behave. The specification itself does not dictate that GraphQL has to be used over the network itself, but most use cases and most industry use cases using in the API ecosystem, and that's what it was used for or released for before when Facebook released it. But the foundation doesn't say that it is only to be used in the over the network. So on which IDE we will do this? I will be using some vibe coding IDEs, but I will start with Apollo Studio, where most of the things will be shared today. Our exercise or our ecosystem will be Apollo Studio, where we'll understand what a GraphQL Explorer looks like, what GraphQL queries and responses looks like. It's an so Apollo Studio is basically I'll share the links. Yes, some you have to download a Git repository, but I'll share what are the next step. Is it a replacement for using REST API? Yes, it is a replacement for using REST APIs. Usually, you either go REST and versus GraphQL, and that's where most companies have making decisions on going with GraphQL today. Intuit being one of those. We've actually invested a lot of GraphQL, and our strategy is mostly going to go to GraphQL. Skills needed to go learn before GraphQL: if you understand very basic REST HTTP methods, it is easy to uh, translate those concepts to GraphQL. And if you've worked in a client server paradigm, I think that's basically the only thing that you really require to do GraphQL. Okay. So joined just now. Did I miss any learning problem? So I think I will be going over what I discussed again. So I don't think you missed anything. I'll be going over some of the concepts again with an example. So just play along and then you'll be able to catch up. So any other questions? Let me just scroll up. Okay. Okay, which language we are going to use? So GraphQL itself, good question. This is not about the language itself. GraphQL is more about the client and the server contract. You can create a GraphQL server in Python or Java or Node.js. Uh, so it does not matter what language you choose, what language you know. It's not about the language itself. The spec is language agnostic. Uh, okay. So I think I will go over the example. Let me see the slides. Okay. So there are two ways to go about this. Let me post this link. I've created a GitHub repo on a GraphQL server for the workshop, and you can click on these repos and we can wait just 1 second. I'll post these links on the chat as well. Just give me 1 second. And then I'll share my screen, start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, can you guys see? Okay. Are you able to see my screen? No. One sec. So you can go to the GitHub link and start following the instructions on the demo app for now. while I figure out the uh, screen share option. So go to the demo app README. There's a folder called as demo app in there, and it's a Node.js application. You don't need to do anything. Just try to see if you can install and start the application. And this is what is the most important stuff, which is the Studio Apollo that I was talking about. This is a you don't need any to download any tool. You just need to do the Explorer, and you'll get it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is it visible now? The second link is just a GraphQL server that comes readily available, but let's not worry about that. We will look at, let's open the Apollo Studio link, which is the studio link I've shared, and we can follow along, right? So if you see this, I have my server up and running on myself, on my machine. Not right now, but let me just start it. And once you start the server, it will be starting on port 4000. That's what we need. And it's okay if it does not. We can, the second link that I've shared about the swappy is basically if you don't want to start your own server, if there are problems that the Netlify, the swappy Netlify link, or if there are problems starting the server, or because the server is Node.js based, you might not have the setup correctly. But just open the Apollo Studio, and the Apollo Studio Explorer will look something like this. You're able to see my screen now, right? Can someone confirm? Okay. So the Apollo Studio looks something like this. You can paste the swappy link here in this text box, which is the second link that I've shared, and that's where it will start. So anyone able to open the studio and paste the swappy link, and this green thing is highlighted there? Okay. Okay, perfect. So now I'll just talk about this studio itself to begin with. This is a studio that is the schema. So I'll share about what will happen and what this studio looks like. This is a studio which is a tool or an explorer for GraphQL. GraphQL, the best thing and the favorite thing for me about GraphQL is it is self-documenting. It is self-documenting when you actually start, when the server actually creates the schema or a GraphQL service. There are a lot of tools that you can build on the schema itself, which you can look at to explore the schema, what server is providing, and actually request responses from the server itself. And I think this is what the exploration looks like. So let me go to root. So this swappy schema today, and I think they might have a SDL or something like somewhere. Okay, so the swappy schema actually is a schema which only provides query. It's a schema that is published by Netlify already, and they also have a server backed by it. And if you see the query, they provide only queries, which is the root query itself, and they provide all of these queries, which is all films, all people, and these are the ones that if you remember our example of movies, The query was something around query in the schema. You were in the query, there was like movie by ID, etc., etc. So they provide a very random schema which you can just query. Like I can create queries like just by clicking stuff. So if I unclicked it, the query editor just changed. I keep clicking on it, it will create the query for me automatically. So if I see films and films, I can ask for each individual attribute. And now these are the attributes that you are actually seeing until the leaf node. So episode ID, let's ask for something like, let's ask for title, right? And let's ask for opening crawl. I don't know what that is, but if you want to look into what it is, you can go here and you can actually see what that field actually means, because the server is actually defined what that attribute means. That's how the explorer can fetch it from and then get that from. So I would encourage you to, if anyone has started looking at this, I would encourage you to look at the explorer and start querying anything from the explorer itself and create your own queries. I have created all films. Okay, so I have created all films. Just keep clicking on the checkboxes and then just films, director. I liked something else like opening crawl. Where was it? Yeah, here. And then maybe release date, right? And then it automatically created the query for me. And then there is a run button here. This is the name of my query. This is the operation, right? And there's a run button and I can just hit this and it will give me the data. So opening crawl is actually a very big thing. Now let me remove it so that I remove it just by unclicking it. If you see that that is gone from here, I click it, the data is clean, and you can actually do all of that beautiful query, the creation of query, playing around with the server itself and query GraphQL itself. So this is what in a nutshell I was talking about when I was talking about GraphQL. This is how you actually deal with GraphQL, and this is like extendable, right? Although the film type is so huge, I only asked for 3 attributes. Let me try to query something else. Like let me ask for ID. Let's see what ID comes back. Okay, so the ID is random string. Other thing that I want to try is I'll go one level back in the Explorer. I'll ask for one film. Okay, so if you see when I was talking about multiple queries in the same thing, let me see if I can create this query. So there are arguments in here. I can create arguments. I can, okay, so let me see if this ID works. What is this? So if I do a filter on this, it should only give me George Lucas or whatever, director or a New Hope. So let me just use film ID. And that's where the variables part of the query comes in. But we'll understand the variables in more detail later. And let's try to ask for, we wanted to ask for the title at least. Okay, let's just ask for title and see if that comes back. Um, okay, so it came back. So if you see this, see the response. I'll just close this and this and this. So the response actually mapped the structure of the query itself, because the schema was, this is, so the leftmost part is the schema that the server has defined. This editor is the query and this is the response. Everything follows the same structure. Are you not able to see my screen? Okay, cool. Then let's play around with more queries. Okay, perfect. Let's play around with more queries and of this Explorer. I'll talk about what the terminology is when we talk about GraphQL. This is documentation. I don't know if they have run history, search schema. So there's also search And there is also something like schema diff, I think, checks. So one example about validation, let's look into validation. The validation I was talking about was, let's imagine right now I created the queries with the explorer itself. So I it's very difficult for me to make any mistakes because I didn't type anything in the query. But let's imagine I type, have a typo. Before even going to the server, this is validated for me. And it will tell you the problem. It is saying that the query title T on type film is does not exist. Did you mean title? So that is the power of GraphQL, that even without making the network call, the query is validated, and the query, this explorer is helping me validate the query itself. I'm not sure if vehicles or starship. Let's try to play around with something else. Crew ID. I am trying to query only certain fields that may return value. So see, now this is a very good example of partial error. I got all films. I got films, but I did not get Starship, because it is saying that the Starship requires an ID or a Starship ID. I don't know if there is an all Starships method to fetch that ID. Yeah, so all Starship. Let's and just keep noticing my editor. Like my editor will just keep increasing the query, and it does not really matter how much my query grows, how much data I can ask in a single request. String, let me delete this for now. So I have all films, oops, here, and then I have film, and I have all Starship. So basically the concept about overfetching and underfetching, right? Although I'm asking for all Starship, although I'm asking for all films, this is where it helps with underfetching, meaning the client is only making one network call to the server to fetch all of the three information or any of the information. But in that one multiple operation, the client is only asking for what field or what title that I need to what I am what I require. Uh, is it making sense? I'll open up for question right now. Question related to the concepts. I know the studio, some people might not have the studio working, but anything related to the setup or anything related to the any questions on the studio itself, right? The client side. Yes, we are simulating client actions. We are actually looking at how does the client know about the server, what resources the server is exposing, and uh, uh, how are we going to query the client server to get the request. At the end of the day, when you are actually programming, this query will stay in your code, on the client side code, but this explorer gives you a very beautiful view of what the server provides, and how do you actually fetch data from the server itself, right? Like Postman. And it is, there are, this is one explorer, there are multiple explorers that are created. GraphQL Playground, Insomnia, Postman. Look for Postman for GraphQL. All of them are actually now supporting GraphQL all the out of the box. So you should be able to use this kind of concept anywhere in your favorite tool or IDE. So the way I started is, if you see the swappy URL posted in here, I just pasted this swappy URL which ends with /GraphQL in this small text box next to sandbox. And I think this is live data fetching. You can just hit that pause and you can refetch the schema from the server. And then that's how it just starts the Explorer. So I will talk about how the client is fetching the schema from the server. There is a very important concept in GraphQL which is called introspection. I will talk about that, and that is how the whole ID or the whole studio is built on, or any kind of GraphQL tool that you see is using the introspection query itself. And I'll share that soon. Okay. There are strategies where client can actually do the schema checks without the network. Yes. But one thing is that the client needs to know about the schema, and the tool that the client uses needs to know about this schema. Oh, the tab name swap. This tab. This is not. This is something that I created. You just do a plus, and then you just start writing. Go to the root, and then create your queries. All people, person. I don't know what is it. Birth year, created, eye color, hair color. Oh my god, I don't want to go nested right now. And then you create all people. So I don't think they have data about all the people, I guess. Behind the scenes. Let me see. They should at least have ID, name. Yeah, so ID and name is there. Birth year. Birth year is not done. Home world. Yeah. So did anyone did everyone get the data, or at least get around familiarizing with the ID itself, or the Apollo Studio itself, or at least making one query to the Swappy API? Okay, perfect. The Swappy API is already defined a server. It's not something that we have created ourselves. It's a very freely available GraphQL server which has introspection enabled. And what you can actually do is try the same GraphQL URL with something called as Insomnia. So I have something called as Insomnia on my machine, and that's where I'll just share what when I'm talking about Insomnia, what I mean. Are you able to see my screen which has Insomnia? I'm sharing it on the same screen, so I don't think it's showing up. Let me stop sharing and start sharing again. I want to share about Insomnia just because I want to talk about how much yeah. So I'm sharing Insomnia right now. Can someone confirm if... Okay, perfect. So see that Swappy URL? I just posted. Insomnia is like Postman. It's a tool that I used to usually make GraphQL queries against Postman. It's not as good as Apollo Studio or something like that. But if you see here, I can refresh the schema. Same thing. I can just put the URL here and just create a new request. Refresh schema. I can do automatic fetches, and you can see show documentation. And here it shows the documentation is in a different way. So query root, etc., all films. And what I can do is now I can actually in this tool start typing the query, and it will just work like an ID. And then let's try to do the same thing, and then we can switch to something else. So not this guy. It's not as good as what we were looking at in the other one because I have to type here title, and let's just look for director. and I can still do the same thing and I can get the data. Point being, there is not only one tool that is available to use with GraphQL. There are actually many tools that the GraphQL ecosystem provides. You can just Google Insomnia. It's like Postman. Just download Insomnia, and then you should be able to do that. It's basically used to create network request. Like I have a lot of GraphQL server here from my stuff, but there is something that I use for my locally. I use that because I like this better than Postman because it was created for GraphQL first, and second, it has a good feature where you can link the APIs one after the another. So if you are doing an authorization and fetching an ticket, and then you have to pass that ticket to the actual API, you can do it in one click itself. But I'm not going to talk more about Insomnia. You can use any tool that you like. You can use Insomnia. You can use GraphQL Playground is very popular. Uh, so I will change gears to the uh, the GitHub repo that I have, and I'll share about the GraphQL server itself. I'll share very. I think we don't have much time to go into creating an actual server, but I'll share about the setup so that we can look at it in detail. So share my screen. But if you if you understand the core concept of the Explorer and the schema and etc., I think that should be. Wait, this window. Okay, yeah, you are only seeing my left hand side of the window, right? So like, I'll have to share my desktop. Just 1 second. Okay, share entire screen. Okay, can you see my entire screen now? Okay, perfect. I think I can see. So in that demo app that I've shared, the workshop app, I'm going to start the server. I have my server running at 4,000, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to replace the swappy GraphQL with 4,000 GraphQL. And if you see here, the studio smartly all changed the documentation and fetched the new schema from the server already. And it started showing up this query itself is invalid now because the swappy schema is not a valid schema now. So I'll just go to here, and this is what let me just start from scratch. Okay, so I will go to the root, and if you see my server on the right side, and this is the studio on the left side. So I created a sample server. In there I have these queries, and I'll just zoom in if that helps. I created these query operations, which is movie by ID, movie by language, genre, year, top rated, recent, and search movies. Similarly, I also have mutations. Remember when I spoke about query and mutation, I have query and I have mutation. And these are special types in GraphQL, which are called as operation types. And each query, like I have an ability to add movie, delete, add a review, update review, delete review. So and everything has a return type. So the return type is movie, which is defined as its own type here, and the movie has a reviews, which is a review type again, right? So in the nutshell, that is basically how you define a GraphQL schema. And in some cases, whenever I am accepting a input from in the mutation or as an argument, those are not defined as types. If you see, this is type, the arguments are input. So these are the two different types of GraphQL. The argument becomes input and the return type becomes a type. but we'll go through the example one by one. And uh, if you see on the left side, and let me just keep flashing the query that we have so you know what I'm talking about. This is a query. The left side should match what all my queries are. Maybe it is not doing the correct order, but it should match whatever I've refined in the schema. Uh, which one do you want me to zoom in? Is it the VS Code or is it the Explorer? Let me zoom both. Oops. Okay. So where does it go? These are the query, and this is okay. This might be good. Okay. So this is the left hand side and the left hand side and the right hand side should be the same thing, because that's what the server defined. That's what the Explorer is getting, and that's what will help us fetch everything. So I'll just select all the movies first and then start. Yeah. So I'll just start getting the data about ID. I might need later, title, and I will need, let's say, language, maybe cover image. I don't want cover image, but let's just do ratings. Okay. So very basic query. I'm just making a query and it should give me something back. It's probably the same thing as Swappy. I have this backed by this JSON. If you see this, I have a mock data that I've set up on the, see the right hand side, I have the mock data set up, and this server is just returning the data from the mock thing. And if I ask for reviews, let's ask for reviews. I don't have reviews for any of the other things, but I maybe have a review for comment. So yeah, I think this is coming back, and let's ask for reviewer who reviewed it. So Rotten Tomato. So yeah, the data is coming from this JSON, which is working fine. We saw an example of query already in the previous stuff. Let's think about mutations. So I have this add review mutation that I can create from scratch again. I don't want to do this. So let's go to root. I'll start a mutation. Mutation is going to be, let's add a review for a movie, and let's take the movie from, let's delete this all people. So I think I just need all movies. I'll just do Swappy here. I'll just move this here. Okay. So I have this all movies and I'm creating a mutation, and my name of the mutation is add review. This can be anything, by the way. This doesn't have to match the query. This is a regular string. It's basically, yeah. And if you see, review is actually a variable which is defined here. Now that's where the variable comes into. If you see the third part of the query that we were querying the backend, where we have query operation and variables, that's where variables come into the picture. And the variable, I think it's using the same variable. Let me just do movie ID. I'll change the movie ID. Movie ID 1 had a review. Let me do a review of Godfather. Let's do Godfather. And then we can just do add review for Godfather. And rating, let's give it 4.9. Let's change the reviewer to be IMDb, and let's just like to be okay. So I added the review view problem. What is it saying? property review is not allowed. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'll ask for the comment back and I'll just ask for the ID. And let's ask for movie ID. Let's see if this runs. So cannot represent a non-integer value. I think it takes an integer. So let me just do 4. And let's see why it failed, right? Review, add review, add review had a review input, and review input, the rating is defined as int. It clearly says that I cannot take the int, and I think that's something that this was complaining about. Yeah, this was already complaining about that. I ignored it. Okay, again it's saying me review got invalid, rating 4, date time was not provided. So I guess there is something required in the reviewer. Movie ID was not provided. Date time was not provided. So I think there's something with the let's try to add review. Let's try to add so variable review got invalid value, comment, movie ID, rating, reviewer, date time, field created add. Okay, I think I know. So in the movies JSON, Godfather does not have a created ad. Okay, let me just do review ID 3. Okay, let's do this. Okay, this also date time was not provided. So I think that's the problem. But yeah, this is something wrong with my server, the logic. But let's just do add movie. Okay, let's see all movies. Yeah, let's do a new mutation. Okay, let's do a new mutation, which is going to be add movie. And what is the movie input saying? Movie input. So if I look at the movie input, it tells me to add everything actually. Okay. Title. Rating is float, which is 4.5. Language is, let's say, put Hindi. And then genre is action. Duration is int. So let's do 60. Director, someone. Yes. Description, and then let's do cover image to be let's ask for ID. Yeah, I think that's same thing is the problem. Review is release year is 2020. Let's see. Yeah, so I got the 26th movie, which should have some Hindi movie, and then all movies should give me that. Yeah, so it should also come back from, let me see, I'll just do movie and ID. Let's just do 26, and then I can ask for more things from here. Language, title. Yeah, so whatever we added, it came back. Basically, it's not a very complicated server. I'm just putting something in the JSON and then coming that back. But I just wanted to show an example of a query and a mutation. If you see, mutation requires a lot more data because it's an update operation, or it is updating the state of the system. But query is quite simple because you ask for stuff. So this is not correct. This, I think, here. Yeah. So query is something very simple. You can ask for multiple things and then you can keep going that. Let's see if we have time for introspection. We do have some time for introspection, but I think there are a lot of questions on how does the Explorer, or how does the tool know about the schema, and I'll talk about that. But before that, any questions on the example? This is something, the Git repo is something that I created for you guys to play around with and modify the code, JavaScript or TypeScript code that you want, and then fork it, play around with it, and it's a very simple app that will give you a very good example of what a GraphQL server looks like. Cool. I'll before ending, I'll talk about, I think that I think there were a lot of questions about the Explorer. Any Explorer, Insomnia or Studio, usually works on a concept called as introspection. And introspection is a special kind of query, which is a query against the schema, not the data. It's a query against, it is the client asking the server, or in most of the cases, the client is a tool, and the client asking the server that, hey, this, get me the schema of the server. So anytime this client, the moment we add, I don't think I have logs on my stuff, but the moment I add the localhost 4000 GraphQL here, it will fetch the schema from the server. That is the responsibility of the client, and the server, by the nature of writing a GraphQL schema, supports introspection by default. An introspection query is something which starts with double underscore. In this case, I'm asking for only type names, and it is giving me a lot more. And if you see, I can ask for description, I can ask for fields inside that, I can ask for the description of fields inside the server. So there is a master introspection query that, see, the enum representing the movie. These are all coming from my schema. Let's look at movie input, right, on the right hand side. So if you see the movie input, this description itself is coming from this backend. See this description. So fields, I think movie input, because it's an input, it's not getting the fields. Then let's look at string is also a type. Date time is a type. What else do we have? Do we have another type? Movie is a good type. So the movie type was defined here. And if you see the movie type, it has all the fields called description. So let me see. I'm asking for description. Let's ask for the name of the field also. So movie had ID, title, director, the description, and the comments is basically this. And that's what I mean by self-documenting schemas when I started about GraphQL. If I click on any of the movie type, and if I click on director, it will tell me what a director is. And if you go to movies, and if I go here, I'll talk about, let's see, which with a very complex one, created at, when the movie was created, right? That was the thing. I think it's mostly from a database. And then I can update this on the back end and restart the server, and it'll start fetching the new information. So for example, let's say type representing a movie in the system. Let's say we don't like the documentation for created. Let's just do in the database, I think, right? And then we can just say in the database. and then let's just restart the server, and you will see this will fetch. Okay, restart, come on. Okay, something is not happening, I guess. Is there a problem with my server? Okay, server is getting killed. npm okay, so I have to check for the server now. This also is actually not able to reach out the server. So yeah, I'll fix it. But the point is, once the server restarts, this description will change, and this will actually see the latest details from the schema. That's a concept in GraphQL called as introspection. And I think let's switch back to the slides if we can. I'll talk about introspection in one of the slides. Are you guys seeing my slides or no? Oops. Yeah. So so this is what an introspection looks like. The server, the client usually asks for the entire. If you see in the slide right now, I'm not talking about clients. I'm talking about tools. The GraphQL tools like Studio or Insomnia or GraphQL Playground usually ask for the whole schema from the server, and the server responds with that. And that's what is used to render the documentation or the explorer in the tool. And this is very useful for any kind of tooling ecosystem around the GraphQL framework. And that's where the enterprise version of the GraphQL, that's where a lot of startups are actually using introspection to create more and more tools of GraphQL. If you see, Insomnia is an open source tool. A lot of other tools are open source. Voyager is a tool which just displays and not allow you to query, but it gives a display of the schema in a graph structure, and then you can explore it using it's a graph explorer, which you can just zoom in and zoom out on any type that you want. So a lot of tools are being done with this concept of introspection. If you see, the introspection also follows the same paradigm or the same specification like a regular GraphQL query. The only difference is it's a special query which has underscore, which starts with underscore. It has you can ask for about a single type from the introspection query. You can ask about multiple types, and you can ask for the whole schema. Now, this is good when you are working on a pre-prod or a tooling ecosystem, but introspection is usually disabled in production. This is very important because introspection can also be used to get lot of information from the by the attacker about your schema, and use it for making DDoS or any kind of attacks against the system. So usually introspection is only used for development environment or for the client to create queries. It is never enabled in production. So such a query that you're seeing on the screen should always be blocking or should not be allowed in a production environment. Introspection queries becomes very heavy the more and more your schema grows, and you will be surprised, the more complicated your system becomes or the service becomes, the schema grows into MBs usually. And I'll talk about that in federation also. Federation is where the schema is composed from multiple subgraphs in the system. So at that point, introspection becomes very heavy as well. So, but the problem is that introspection is needed for creating these tools and creating these client libraries also for validation purposes and making sure the query is right. So introspection is mostly enabled in development environment, never enabled in production environment. It's a security requirement that you should not do it. I will stop uh, here, but any questions until now? I think someone has how introspection is used in practical application. So introspection is very important. Like I said, this is what I was sharing on the screen, Studio or Insomnia. This is the actual development environment that we use internally, and any GraphQL developer will use to actually explore the schema in a self-serve manner. In the REST world, usually you talk to the server team, like you actually go and talk to the server team and see they tell you what the contract looks like and what method you want to create, what is the JSON that you want to create against the server, and then you actually can make the request. And there's a lot of back and forth between the client and the server teams. In a typical large organization, the client team is different and the server team is different. There's a lot of service microservices that are created. You can't have that level of communication between people, which will just slow folks down. What just I demoed with the Swappy API today was Swappy. I don't have any idea about Swappy APIs. Maybe I had because I ran through it multiple times, or I played around it with multiple other demos. But you guys can go play around with Swappy just by the nature of Swappy being a GraphQL server. They didn't have to do anything extra to enable the Explorer for you. Just by the nature of writing a service in GraphQL gives you this capability to explore and any client to create GraphQL queries against them. That's the added flexibility that GraphQL or the REST GraphQL offers over the REST ecosystem. I can use Postman. I can plug in the Swappy URL. It will give me the Swappy queries and mutation. I can myself, without talking to the Swappy team or without talking to the Swappy server, what your API looks like, I can start creating queries against their server. So that's what the practical application of introspection is, and in general GraphQL is. Introspection is also used by the client. Usually imagine when you are creating a client or a UI, your GraphQL query will stay on the client side. And we look at it, your GraphQL query will stay on the client side, and the client needs to validate the queries against the server. We should not, and the client does not need to deploy the application to validate the query against server. So a lot of libraries, just Google client libraries, any kind of client tooling that GraphQL developers have built will be based off of this introspection mechanism. What those libraries do is they actually make an introspection query to the server, fetch the schema on the client side, cache it, and then whatever queries that the client code is using, they actually validate that queries at the build time. So when the client is building or even compiling, the queries will be validated. There are I think there is Apollo who's built, at least we have one in internal for internal tools at Intuit. You can actually, while you are typing your queries in the editor like IntelliJ or VS Code or any IDE of your choice, that queries will be validated right there itself using introspection. The experience that I was getting in the studio can also be replicated in the IDE itself using introspection. So during the development lifecycle of the client system itself, they can validate the queries, they can make sure that the queries are right and will fetch me the right information. The point being, the GraphQL unlocks all of this development experience and velocity for the whole ecosystem. It kind of provides the flexibility for the clients and leaves the server team focused on development on the server rather than communicating with the client. Make sense? Any more questions? I think we are on time, but if there are any questions, please feel to add it to the chat, and then I can answer those. Okay, let me scroll up. The pre-written queries. I think this is introspection. VS Code. VS Code should have a GraphQL ID plugin, but it does not. It will not hook to a URL. It will only allow you to query. Read and write GraphQL queries easily. How the pre-written queries are committing. Okay, same thing. Insomnia. Okay, I want to implement GraphQL. So I'm using a MERN stack. If I want to implement GraphQL, does it also replace Mongoose or just REST controller? It will only replace REST controller. It does not dictate anything that you do after after. It is only an interface to your server. Like instead of get put post, you will expose a GraphQL schema, and that's what your server will respond with. Tab name. I think that's it. I think the presentation slides will be shared. Yes. Cool. I will stop sharing, and then I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully this gave you a good introduction of the power of GraphQL. Tomorrow we will start about, we'll dive more into this movies application and what does it take to actually create a GraphQL server.